Welcome to Pet Business Disruptors. I'm Clayton. I'm here today with Rory Hanna, who is the one of the co-founders of PAWD Drinks, a pet health drink company based in London, who are doing something very different in the industry. How's it going today, Rory?
Yeah, it's great, Clayton. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here, although the weather is terrible, as expected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's to be expected time of the year. I mean, we're not living in Bondi Beach, so
no. If only we were.
Yeah, that's right. I probably wouldn't get much done, to be fair, if I was living in Bondi Beach, to be honest. But yeah, man, like, tell me all about what you're doing, because obviously you're doing a health drink.
So we are functional supplements, but in liquid form.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing, because obviously I think like one of the things that people talk about a lot when they're talking about the anthropomorphization of dogs in the pet industry is the people talking about drinks and that sort of stuff. Now, I've never been a big fan of drinks.
Yep.
Just like if I'm putting my cards on the table, just because drinks for me, they're not something which dogs like crazy enjoy. You never see a dog going, you know what, I just love, let's say, a bowl of Fanta or something like that. You know, it's they're very much like taste driven. But I do see the point in a liquid supplement as a way of getting it into the dog. So, yeah, like, how did you get into that? Like, what was...
So the story or the journey started with my family dog, Scrumpy. He was Jack Russell and lived till 17 and a half. Healthy for the vast majority of his life, but did encounter a few very common health issues such as arthritis and anxiety, especially in his older age. This unfortunately resulted in numerous trips back and forth to the vet. And, you know, as all dog owners know, vets these days are extremely, extremely expensive. And, you know, I just remember when growing up that my parents would always come back and say, oh, God, that's very expensive. And, you know, another big bill here. And ultimately, it was a consultation and a pill plan. And not only did I see that, but then I also saw my mum try and chase Scrumpy around the kitchen, trying to end up force feeding him pills, wrapping them in ham and cheese and whatever she could to get him to take it. And it just, to me, seemed crazy that there wasn't an easier way to ultimately get supplementary kind of supplements into the dog. And so this is where the kind of idea for liquids came. We've got it in the human world, and it's just why hadn't it been done in the dog world? Yeah,
I think it's a good point, because obviously, I mean, I've been a dog owner my whole life, and there's a way of putting pills down dogs' throats, which it's not the nicest, you know, but and then there's the other way where you try and coax them with food and that sort of stuff. But some dogs are pretty clever and pretty against taking pills. And when you put some supplements on your dog's dinner, they don't necessarily want to eat that, or they eat round it and this sort of stuff. They're pretty dastardly at getting around actually eating the supplement you're trying to get into them. So I do see it as a different angle to try and get those in. But again, like with drinks, it's a different prospect, isn't it, to pills? It's a much more difficult, like pills are very easy to transport. They're very easy to produce. I think like taking on a drink format as a challenge is much more difficult.
So we've designed PAWD to be, you mentioned there, it's easier to kind of transport. PAWD comes in very small 60 milliliter bottles, which we've, from our kind of initial customers, have said they love taking out on walks with them. And one of the benefits, I guess, to having a liquid, it does also have that hydration benefit, which, you know, pills and chews and tablets don't have, which I think is quite important for dog owners.
Yeah. I mean, let's say you do take one out on a dog walk with you. How do you normally sort of give it? Because obviously, if it's in a bowl, it's like giving it to your dog.
Yep. So yeah, it very much is as simple as open the bottle and pour the liquid into an empty dog bowl, and the dog will actively go towards it and lap it up. And that's what we've seen. So gone are the days of having to, as you say, force feed the dog. The dog actively wants to go towards it and enjoys it.
Yeah. I mean, because 60 ml is not very much, is it?
No.
So do you find that like people mix it with other liquids to mix it with water, let's say, just to bulk it up? So if the dog's thirsty, they drink it more, or do you advise just giving it on its own?
So we advise that what the liquid contents of the bottle needs to get into the dog. That's where the kind of active ingredients are. That's where the active benefits are. And so whether that's poured into an empty dog bowl or poured on top of food, those are the two ways we suggest it. Diluting with water, we don't suggest, because ultimately, a dog bowl, full dog water bowl, that could be across a few days. We want to be 1 serving bottle per day.
Yeah. Okay.
For best results.
Yeah. And have you found the take up in terms of people, because it is different. Like, I think when most people, let's say, think about dog supplements, you're thinking about powders, you're thinking about like tablets, you're thinking about it being put into things like dog treats, dog toppers, that sort of stuff. So have you found like the take up amongst people?
Yeah. So from, we're a very young company, and from our initial customers, we've seen a great uptake. We've seen that the products are very functional. A lot of customers have seen benefits. Looking at our calming product, people have seen it, act very quickly, kind of pre a long car journey to make the dog relax and enjoy the car journey. But, people are saying that their dogs actively like the product and are seeing the functional benefits. And that, from this early stage, is all we could have ever hoped for. To date, we've done purely organic marketing, and it's taken a lot of time and a lot of effort attending numerous events. But showcasing the product firsthand by myself and Archie is the way in which we want to come across to the customer, and also be able to tell them the story and tell them the benefits ourselves. Tell them about the increased bioavailability of a liquid compared to a pill, compared to a paste. Coming from us and hearing the story firsthand is so important to us, especially in the early days, trying to refine our messaging and really work out who the customer actually is.
I think also you've kind of hit the market at the right time a little bit, because we've seen a big rise in the sales of things like bone broth. And I think, is it Earth's Pets has brought out another thing which is similar, like a sort of a gunky liquid, which is full of goodness. But I think you've come into the market at the right time, because I think supplementation has blown up in the last 4 or 5 years, but also people who are using bone broth are also used to putting let's say a liquid supplement on top of their dog's food. So I think there's a lot of good fortune, or the gods at work sort of pushing this together, because I think if you'd have released this 15 years ago, it would have been a very different proposition. I mean, how are you currently selling it? I mean, what is your current distribution model? Are you going to shops? Are you going to wholesalers? Are you D2C only at the moment? What do you see the future in terms of expansion?
So at the moment, we are purely D2C. We are an online business through all our kind of social media channels on our website. We sell it as a one-time purchase, or we sell it as a subscription. We highly advise a subscription, because it's not a one-time it's not a one-time product. It's a longer-term decision to supplement your dog, like supplements are for humans. In time, we attended PATS this year, and there was a huge amount of interest in the product. People haven't seen the kind of liquid side of supplements before. And you're right, bone broth coming in is actually great for us. We saw one of our biggest hurdles coming into this journey was the education of the consumer, why liquids are better than pills, and having bone broth in the market and almost making that one step closer to us is very, very beneficial for us. It takes the kind of liquid concept on top of food or into bowls. It takes it for us, and it educates the consumer for us. And now we are just taking that one extra step and saying, okay, instead of bone broth, let's go into a fully functional, scientifically developed, veterinary formulated product that, actually has the functionality benefits of whether it be calming or joints and so on. So in time, I see it very, very much being in retail. Having got a lot of interest from PATS, that is our next step in kind of Q1, Q2 next year. And then again, we can see going across multiple different channels in the veterinary channels and working with groomers.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. I think, like, look, for me, I always think D2C is hard. I always think D2C is really hard, especially off your own website. I think, like, Amazon obviously has its place, but I always think the problem with Amazon is Amazon just kind of hoovers up the work which you've created anyway. They don't really create work, in my opinion. I think they just hoover up what's already out there. But it gives people like a sense of trust. I always think the problem is with D2C websites is that it's hard to get people to buy from D2C websites, because, like, me personally, if I like a product, am I buying it D2C, like, off the actual company website, or am I buying it off Amazon?
Yeah.
As much as I kind of hate Amazon in my own way, I do buy stuff off Amazon, just because I know if it turns up and it's broken, if there's an issue, Amazon will just sort that out, and you don't naturally have that same trust with a D2C website. But also, because it is a educational based product, I do see, like, your products being a strong product for the independent trade.
Yep.
Because people who actually, you know, especially raw food shops, raw food dog shops, and standard retailers, because, you know, these are people who talk to their customers, who actually will jump into talking to them and say, oh, my dog struggles, you know, like you say, you do a calming one. I'm assuming, is that with valerian skull cap, or is it?
So that has got melissa and passion flower, the two natural ingredients.
Okay. And, like, but yeah, people will talk and they'll say, okay, yeah, my dog's going on a long car journey, or he gets stressed out while I'm out, or, you know, there's firework night or whatever. And they can actually then guide that person to say, well, there's these tablets, but then there's also this drink, and the drink is, you know, more bioavailable and blah, blah, blah. And they can actually do it as a counterpoint, which makes more sense for a lot of consumers, because as a consumer, you're always looking for, okay, well, there's this, but what else is there?
Yeah.
And actually, everybody likes to have at least the 2 or 3 options of everything.
Yeah, and you like to be recommended by your trusted sources, right?
Yeah.
We've recently, kind of just before Bonfire Night, launched on Amazon, and we are seeing that the Amazon community is far better at leaving reviews, which then adds trust. And I think that's because people go to Amazon. It's already, as you mentioned, a very trusted marketplace, and one of the kind of largest searches during the whole of Black Friday was dog supplements. And it's a great place to market, because you obviously have a huge number of people, but it is a search place, and it's a slightly more product focused search place than Google at the moment. And it gives you direct access to purchase. So Amazon for us is going to be very much a credibility thing. You know, the kind of reviews for us is so important. It adds credibility to the product, but also gives trust to the consumer when they're purchasing on there.
Mm. I always saw things like Amazon as also a price anchoring mechanism as well, is that whatever the price is on Amazon, that's what the price should be in store at a maximum, you know. And I think if you can actually, that I also feel the same about, let's say, dealing with big corporates as well. If you're dealing with a Pets at Home in the UK, or a PetSmart or Chewy in the US, whatever price they're selling it for, that becomes like the gold standard price, and then no one wants to argue with that.
Yep.
Whereas if you don't have that, it's kind of like the price can be a little bit more in the ether, and people might want to argue about it a little bit more, you know. So
yeah, look, we're from our side, from PAWD side, we're fortunate that Archie used to work at Amazon, so he knows all the ins and outs, tips and tricks of working the Amazon algorithm, and the best way in which to launch a product and take it further afield. So we've launched, and there's a few more steps that we want to put in place before we're fully up and running, all products, all singing and dancing, to really maximize ultimately the outreach that we can provide on Amazon.
Yeah, well, that helps. Because what's the saying? Is it if you want to bury somebody, put them on the second page of Amazon? It's kind of, and actually getting the algorithm to pick you up is hard, especially in a busy category like dog supplements. So
yeah, and unfortunately for us, there isn't a set dog drinks category yet, or dog liquids category. But fingers crossed that's coming, and we're working towards that. So when that does come, that'll be a good day for the liquid supplement space.
Yeah. So how did you go about making the product originally? Because it's always interesting when you've got something which is distinctly different. It's sort of like if you said to me tomorrow, I want you to produce me a range of let's say fish oils. I could do it tomorrow because it already exists. It's just white label plant, or like if it's a range of, let's say, normal supplements, where there's half a dozen companies I can use across Europe which will produce that for me. Like literally just give them a design
and you put a sticker on it.
Yeah. Whereas what you've done is actually created a new category of product.
Yep.
How did you find that journey in terms of the manufacturing journey?
So from our side, Archie and I, full disclosure, we are not scientists. We're not animal nutritionists.
What?
Yeah,
Get out.
Can you believe
it? Get out, man.
So we had to partner with a world-leading animal nutritionist firm. They are based in Germany. And so we've undergone 2 years of R&D working alongside them to not only source the ingredients, but also create, develop, and test the products to bring to the market today. They work very closely with the University of Berlin. So we've had some universal studies and universal kind of papers written on the products. And then the testing has been done alongside the University of Berlin to create ultimately the kind of scientific white papers that we need for the products.
Okay, so pretty intense.
It's been a long road to get to ultimately just to get to the launch. Working with German scientists was a fun adventure. A little bit probably was lost in the language barrier, but look, they've been extremely supportive. We have a very close relationship, and it's always the hardest getting the first one done, getting the first functional product type, and now looking to expand the range.
Yeah. So what made you, so how long did that journey take from start to end?
I left my job 2 years before launch. So 24 months or so.
Yeah, I was going to say, because my experience of like university studies is 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and what we've learned along this journey is nothing happens quickly. Everything takes time, but it takes time for a reason. And if it did happen quickly, then things would go wrong, which ultimately would take longer. So we've had to be patient. We have a huge amount of excitement for the supplements, for the category, and where we see it going. That, when I say us, I mean Archie and myself, but also our scientific partners. But it's patience, and let's get the kind of key steps done correctly. Let's prove the kind of efficacy and go from there.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, man. Like, because it's I like how like different it is, and it's the fact that you're out there creating a new category. And look, I have experience of like building like products in completely new categories, and I can tell you it's much more difficult.
Yeah.
Than just, if you gave me a pre-existing product with just a slightly different take on it, that's so much easier than what you're doing.
You've got people to benchmark yourself against, and you can leverage that education they've spent years investing in. You can use that to your advantage. But creating this new category, ultimately, yes, it's great because we're one of the first people there, but there's nothing to benchmark us, and everything we put out, there isn't supplementary kind of noise from other marketing sources.
Look, they always say you should always be second to market.
Yeah, that would help.
They always say be second to market, don't be first, because the first to market does all the work, and then second to market can just sort of ride the coattails about the capital expense of like years of like pushing and development and stuff.
But I think one way in which we've, given the very close relationship humans have with their dogs, the way in which the human market or the dog market has very much mirrored the human market in many ways. The whole functionality of drinks is abundant in the human market, and we see it only being a matter of time until that is kind of reciprocated into the dog market. And we've spoken to a lot of human drink companies, the functional ones, about kind of their journeys and how they've done it and how they've got it out there on, limited budgets, and how they've created that success to grow into the brands that, we aspire to be like in the dog category. So we are taking a lot of learnings from them. And I think that is, I guess, our North Star to follow, because as we mentioned, we are one of the first in the liquid supplement category.
Yeah. And as a liquid supplement, like, so currently they're in 60 ml bottles. These plastic bottles, glass?
They are glass bottles for sustainability.
Yeah. So how do you find that in terms of transporting and damages?
So touch wood, today we haven't had a single damage.
Oh, really?
Which is, great. The packaging, we've spent more on the packaging to protect them. So it's slightly thicker, but again, the cardboard that we use is fully sustainable, 100% recyclable. And it cost us a little bit more to make sure they are protected, because ultimately it is a D2C product. It ends up on your doorstep. So once it leaves our fulfillment center, we don't have hands-on. We're not hand delivering them, unfortunately. So we needed to make sure that it's safe enough and undergo quite a few tests to ensure that when it turns up at your door, it's as we want it to be, fully intact, no leakages, and that's what we've seen to date. Okay,
cool. Yeah, man, it's interesting. Like, I mean, how have you how do you see the future then, in terms of, like, because at the moment you've got 3 SKUs, am I right?
At the moment we have 3 SKUs. We have PAWD Calming, PAWD Joints, and PAWD Wellness. So PAWD Wellness has been our recent launch. Give it in time with the whole winter coming up and the cold months. You know, PAWD Wellness very much helps with the immune system and kind of strengthening that up. So it's kind of almost perfect timing for that coming into the winter months. But again, we've built a community that we like to ultimately ask questions, speak to them, and really find out what they struggle with their dogs and what they would love to be ultimately proved and to be solved. And so we've got the development of our next 2 or 3 products are underway, and it's just a matter of time until we can launch those.
What's the active ingredient in the wellness one?
So the wellness one is full of BCAA acids. It's very much helps with cognitive functions, the immune, and physical recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. And so, like, in terms of marketing at the moment, like, are you going down the traditional startup, I'm going to spend a fortune on Facebook ads, or are you doing the actual going out and doing shows, visiting people? Like, what's your current strategy?
So we are fortunate in we raised our kind of pre-seed round and took on board a load of very experienced and expert investors who advised us, as you just pointed out there.
So I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but it was like, I just see
take a step away from Meta for now. And so we've done exactly that. We haven't spent a single penny on Meta or Google. We actually worked it out today. We were at 73 shows across the summer since our launch in March, 5 of which we've personally hosted, in which we encourage, ultimately being at these shows is a great way for Archie and I to actually speak to the customer and understand what the customer is actually looking for. And I think before we take any steps towards paid marketing on Meta or Google, we have been trying to find out exactly what resonates with the customer and what ultimately they are looking for, so that we can be that solution. And so it's been a lot of events up and down the country, in the rain, in the sun, wherever it may be, really kind of taking that time to speak to individuals and, with their dogs there, showcasing what we're doing. A lot of people love the product and love the concept. And we just wanted to find out exactly what they wanted, and would they use it? Why would they use it? Would they be a subscriber? Is it a long-term plan? Are they looking for a shorter-term solution? And a lot of the feedback that we've had has aligned exactly how we initially thought. It isn't just a short-term win. It is a longer-term kind of very conscious effort to supply your dog with a functional benefit that very much comes onto the whole preventative nature of the market, rather than the reactive side. And I think that is a big step and a big mindset shift of the prevention rather than just the reaction.
I think the trouble is, and this is from my own experience, I think people are reactive rather than proactive. Yep. And I think it is hard to get people to be proactive, because I am like it with myself, with just my own habits, is that my teeth start falling out, I'll go to the dentist. But I'm going to drink cans of Monster in the meantime, and all the rest of it, eat Haribos and stuff. And I think it is, people are better with their dogs in terms of being proactive, but I think it's sort of trying to start with the right community and branching out from there, isn't it? And I think I like the fact you're going to shows, because I think so many people I see coming into the space, they want the traction, but they want to sit at home and get it. They just want to throw
sit behind a screen and watch the lines.
Yeah, and so that customer cost us 70 quid, to in CPAs. It's and actually going out and speaking to people and putting your face behind it and actually like demonstrating the product and that sort of stuff. It's so much more important, to be honest. And look, because the reality is, look, I worked in the independent trade as a distributor for years, and the best way to actually get a product going is to give it to the retail, is to go to shows. I mean, one of my biggest things was going to Crufts every year.
Yep.
Because if I had a new product, if I could get enough people to get it at Crufts, it would spike interest around all my stores nationwide.
Yep.
And then that product, it was the best form of marketing I could do. I mean, there's no dog magazine or Facebook ad that I could ever do which would be more effective than putting something in someone's hands, them using it, and them coming back for more.
I completely agree. And what do we do at the shows? We speak to the people, we give a sample there and then, and the consumer steps back. Well, we purposely give it to the consumer closed. We get them to open it and pour it into a bowl, showing them how easy it is to actually do, reminding them of the pain points of pills, paste, and tablets, and they pour it into the bowl, and they then step back and they watch their dog lap it up. And seeing your dog wagging its tail, having a health functional drink, rather than a chew or whatever it may be, the consumers really, really like it. And that's one of the hurdles we've faced is because it is a new product, because it is slightly different to the norm, it's, getting people to trial it. And this comes back to how is it served and how is it kind of sold. At the moment, we've just introduced a trial pack, which is a 1 week supply, which we send out to the customer. And, the big hurdle is will my dog drink it? Because a lot of people say, oh, my dog's fussy. Oh, my dog doesn't normally like drinking and so on. And we say, you know what, try it. If your dog doesn't drink it, you can send it back to us or whatever it may be. But just try it. And once we get over that trial phase and the dog actually does drink it and in fact actually loves it, that is one big step done to the consumer mindset.
Yeah. Is it more palatable than water then, would you say?
It's got a seasoning in it. It's flavored. So the dogs can actively smell it. They get excited by it. And I'd say the kind of absorption, or not the absorption rate, the palatability test is, it is more palatable for dogs. So
it is kind of, in a sense, like a treat.
In our kind of early days, we saw it as a treat, on the fact that rather than a pet treat, it's just a treat because dogs will enjoy drinking it.
Yeah.
But it very much is a supplement. But you're right, dogs actively like drinking it and wag their tail when they drink it.
Okay. No, that's interesting because obviously, again, like going back to using the whole bone broth sort of analogy, but bone broth has become so successful because the dogs like it, because it has the functional health benefits. And what you're really doing is you're offering something very similar in a sense, but you're just, rather than bone broth it's a natural product and it has let's say a discrete range of benefits, you're creating something similar but with different benefits on all of them.
Exactly. We're similar in the way in which we are a 100% natural liquid. We do not contain any acidifiers or preservatives, but ultimately we've listened to the customers, what their pain points are, and we are looking to provide the solution for that, rather than potentially providing a product and then finding people who have the problem. It's very much customer first. What is the problem? What are the there are some well-known problems in the dog space that customers and consumers would like to be able to fix, rather than having to go to the vet and take that next step. It's this preventative care that ultimately we would look to solve and provide for.
So, who do you see as your competitors in the space? Do you have competitors? Do you see yourself as being completely out on your own, or?
No, I think, look, I don't think it's ever good to say we've got no competitors. I think that's just wrong and potentially narrow-minded. I think, looking at the supplement world, ultimately all supplement providers are. We are a supplement company. we are just doing it in a different form. We are doing it in a liquid form. So looking at, the competitors, 𝐸𝐕 is up there. Of course it is. Nutripor's up there. So the big players for the supplement space are there. We are just doing it in a more efficient and more effective way through liquids.
Yeah. And like in terms of because obviously I'm assuming it's all made in the UK.
Yep.
The product. So like longer term, have you looked at international markets? Have you looked at...
So again, look, the demand is there. We've had interest from Europe. We've had orders through our D2C site, which has been a little bit of a few issues, few hiccups.
Well, it's. I guess it's still classed as organic. So anything organics going through customs is an absolute pain in the ass, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very much had a few operational issues. But again, utilizing Archie's skill set, expansion using Amazon is one of the ways in which we're going to look to grow initially. Using the kind of fulfillment services through Amazon means we can pretty much risk-free open up into Europe, into Germany, into, the EU, and grow through that without having to ultimately expend too much capital.
Yeah, because obviously then it's just a matter of sending a parcel of stuff to Amazon Germany, like choosing a fulfillment center, whether it's Germany, Holland, Spain, wherever it is, whatever part you think is going to be the most useful, and then at least once it's over there, it makes it easier.
It becomes a little bit hands off, and then let Amazon do their work, and they provide quite a lot of the operational logistics. And again, leveraging Archie, working out the best way to run Amazon or let Amazon work for you is quite important.
What about from the aspect of appointing distributors, or would you look to do it all yourself? Because obviously the problem I've always found with Amazon is that once you control Amazon yourself,
yep, it
can potentially put off future distributors who might want to use Amazon as part of their distribution
network.
Yeah.
No, look, I think that's completely right. I think just given our size and given our opportunity to scale, taking the first few steps to even test the waters in these countries, it's a very low capital risk to expand through that. Down the line, we would definitely be looking for kind of future distributors and wholesalers into the EU market. But from the next step to test the markets, that is the way in which we plan to do it.
Yeah. How did you find Pat's then in terms of meeting people?
Pat's was great. We loved Pat's. We were on the kind of new starter stands with fellow other people, and we absolutely loved it. The interest we got in the product was great. People were coming up, big players were coming up to us and actually were actively wanting to speak to us, which is, given that we are very young and haven't got these huge marketing budgets, it's great to even see that interest in us. I think it ties in nicely with the new product type, with the whole new category. I think, the wholesalers and retailers, they want to be one of the first into the space, and through that is coming directly to us. So no, we had a great time there, and it's now just working out what pace do we want to grow. Do we want to rush into it? Probably not. We want to strategically build our D2C business and then increase our channels step by step, and really kind of walking before we can run. Because the interest was there this year, if we wait 6-12 months, it's likely to still be there. And we've been building the relationships with the senior buyers at these places. And, I think these relationships work best having been built over a long time and being able to prove the concept and prove ultimately the sales ability and the demands there.
Yeah, and dealing with big corporate buyers is always a challenge as well.
Yes.
Obviously, I've got a lot of experience with that, but they are. There's nothing worse than being too keen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they'll sniff out a weakness quite easily, to be honest. But what I would say is that because your, let's say, champion products, currently are very different in the space, there's a lot of, let's say, big box stores, companies that see themselves as being on the edge, cutting edge. And look, they're always trying to gain a little bit of something over the next guy. So whether it's just for pets or Pets at Home, Jollies, whatever, if they can be first to market with something which their competitors don't do, which is totally different in the space, that's always going to be something they're into, rather than if you had something which was another X, Y, and Z product, but yours is a little bit cheaper, looks a bit snazzier or whatever. There's always, this is completely different. This is, well, maybe we should be in this mold. But I do agree that the other danger is with going into those guys is that, again, they're not going to sell your product for you.
No. Yeah, that's the thing.
You have to sell your product, but you do need distribution. So I talk about, obviously, if you've listened to me talking about wholesalers generally, I always say wholesaler networks are great for brands. So for your brand, wholesaler distribution networks would be great. So whether it be your Pedigree Wholesale, your Subridge, Trust, Best Pets, whoever, but they will not sell your product. They will put it on their shelf. They will make it available in a very easy form for stores to stock and sell easily.
But they don't sell it.
But they won't sell it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of people who sell into wholesalers who are like, well, I've made it now. They've got 500 stores. But, I used to have, I don't know, like something like that when I was wholesaling. But I can tell you that, like, I still had products that I wouldn't sell from one week to the next.
Yeah, and I think that's why we very much want to walk before we can run. We want to, as I go back to it, it's educating that consumer, and it ultimately is educating the staff who are selling it as well, right? Yeah. It's, they will not sell our products. So we need to get the consumers to understand, okay, these are the benefits for taking a liquid rather than taking a pill or paste or whatever it may be. And this is why I'm going to buy it. And until we get that awareness behind it, I don't see the huge benefits apart from brand awareness of going into these big wholesalers, retailers, because ultimately, as you say, they don't sell it for us. They just put it there and put it in front of people's eyes. We need people to recognize it and understand the actual benefits to taking the product. And then I see that being a very successful channel. I do see independent retailers as being good. And the only thing I would say is that going into wholesale is kind of important for independent retailers. Yep. Because your problem is always going to be, what minimum order can you send to an independent retailer with the margin that you're making? Because we're not talking about a D2C margin where you can send a tenner's worth and maybe charge them a couple of quid postage. We're talking about, and then for a normal store, it's like, can I really buy 100 quid's worth of this stuff? That's quite a lot of stuff. Whereas if they can buy it through a wholesaler, they can just replace the packs they're selling on a week-to-week basis. Buy in, buy out.
But I do see independent retailers as hugely beneficial because when you're into the right ones, they do actively sell.
Yeah, and I think they will. And I think, as long as they understand the product themselves, then they can be extremely beneficial. And also, it's a great chance for us to really, again, understand the customer mindset in different areas, different geographies, that hopefully the feedback can come back to us and we can really then strategize how we want to move forwards and what we can do to make the product fit that customer need, rather than, we think it's this, let's push this out. No, let's actually take it from a customer's perspective. What are they looking for and what do they need? And then we can suit that, we can fit that mold.
Yeah. So just flipping back to like the investment side, I know we talked about it before, but a lot of young companies are sort of coming onto the scene through investment. But I know you said that your investors give you more than just money. Yep. Which I see a lot of companies which don't have that, to be honest. They're just getting people, throw some cash into them. And I think the problem is that running a brand, there's so many hats you have to wear that it's actually, even with two people, unless you've got two highly experienced people, and like, I'm not obviously saying that you guys aren't, but you're also relatively young. I mean, I've probably got 20 years on you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, even if it was just me and one other person, I would still know that I'd have some serious dark spots in some areas, because I'm not 100% all round, and it's very hard to then link with somebody who's 100% all round. But like, to talk about like what you looked for investors, because look, it's hard enough getting investment. It's hard enough getting somebody to give you a few quid to run with an idea, but also to find those people who are actually doing more than just giving you money.
When Archie and I set out in the first instant, we thought, okay, let's go raise a round of investment and we'll put the money to work. And we quickly found that, exactly as you said, there's money, there's the right money, and then there's, people who will just give you the money and take a step back. We massively thought, right, we wanted to be in a position where our investor base, we can pick up the phone and they have extreme expertise on a wide range of topics. And we're in a very fortunate position that we've acquired our kind of investor table, and the skill sets massively range from email marketing experts to website developers to wholesale experts to retailers and to sales to, corporate structures and so on. So we feel very fortunate that, as and when questions that need answering, proper big questions for the kind of lifeline of the business, we can phone up an investor who's attached to the business but also has that expertise. And whether or not it's been extremely beneficial to date, I see in the future years to come, that is one of the biggest assets to pour drinks. It really is, having that almost umbrella of expertise that we can reach out as and when Archie and I don't know an answer to, or can't work out an answer, or, to be honest, differ on answers between us. It's two people, one can have one and one can have the other. It's a great way to use them as basically an extra vote to say, actually, this is the right way to do it. And for us, that is almost as valuable as the money. For startups, when budgets are limited, avoiding pitfalls and expensive pitfalls is so invaluable. And we'd like to think that our kind of investor base has been extremely helpful to date in navigating us around these pitfalls that has kept us going. And, we're fortunate that we've been able to acquire those investors to date.
Yeah. And so how did you go about that? Was it pitching events or?
Yeah. So we did numerous pitching events. We almost everywhere we could, every conversation you have in this space could lead you to someone. You never know who knows who and who is looking for that next opportunity to get into something, which is really, as you said, it's an idea, but the market is out there. And so we turned up to pitching events together. On some days we did individual ones so that we could be in two places at once. And, we've leveraged the PIF. Dan at the PIF has been incredible. Yeah. And, it's just trying to speak to as many people as possible. And, we're fortunate that I think it's nearing 40% of people in the UK have a dog, or 33% of families have a dog. And so as soon as we mentioned the pills and ham and cheese, they instantly warmed and recognized the issue. They themselves have had that problem. And so our selling point was, we want to be a solution to that. We don't want you to ever have to wrap another pill or in ham or put it into cheese and force feed it to your dog. And it was that instant recognition that then when we gave samples, they could take it away and hopefully see the functionality of it. That is what ultimately, got us foot in the door. Yeah. And I think, being able to give them the samples and being able to give them actual physical products in their hands so they can take it away and try it on their own dog is, invaluable. Because, they see 1,000,001 pitch decks or whatever it may be, but being able to see a product work for right in front of you is different.
Yeah. And I think also, like most of the time when you hear pitches, they're very conceptual. Yep. And also, I know people, and I'm going to be nice. I know I've met some of the people who are in the pet startup space. Like, I've spent time in Huckle Trees and WeWorks and that sort of stuff. And it's, this guy's a pet food specialist and that. And then you're like, Jesus Christ, that's not even a business, man. Do you know what I mean? And you think, how did you raise money? But I totally get where you're coming from, and I do think it's it's quite revolutionary in what it does. Do you know what I mean? So I think I can see the hardness that you got ahead of you, because I do understand, like, the category building exercise is so difficult, and the reality is you probably need 10 of you in Archie to be out there doing it, like talking to people continuously. But that will come as you get more and more like product champions on board. And it's getting those people. And look, that's why I can honestly tell you that, like, I had a product which I was very keen on. It was a dog treat product, and I just got one person to take that product. They then, like, eulogized about it on their Facebook groups, where they were a dog trainer and a raw food person, and it just blew up.
Yep.
And then suddenly everybody wanted it, and like then that product actually ended up selling more value-wise than pig's ears for me, which was wild.
Yeah, wow.
Because we were selling a couple of pallets of pig's ears a week at the time. So, and that's the thing, is that it is just trying to knock down doors until you get those champions on board.
Yeah, and I think the shift in the kind of marketing mindset, I guess, is lending itself towards communities. You know, Facebook ads, Google ads have been around for so long now, and they are not having the same impact that they used to. And having that advocacy through communities really is the way in which we see it. And so this is why we are doing our community dog walks once a month from now on. We are really looking to build a community that will ultimately end up advocating and referring, and that word of mouth spreading. And yes, it might not be the biggest reach to begin with, but having a close-knit community that you can grow step by step really is the way in which we're looking to get out there. And of course, Facebook, Meta, Google have their place. They do. They always will. But there are new, different channels which can help with this advocacy and getting and growing.
No. I do think the problem is that there's a lot of people who are like looking at previous acquisitions. So, for example, Nom Nom, I don't know if you're aware of them. They're like an American subscription delivery company, dog food company, and they were acquired for like $1 billion by Mars Pet Care. And so now we have, like, as you'll probably notice, like a huge raft of these subscription delivery companies in the UK, all trying to be the next Nom Nom.
Yeah.
But they're just absolutely tipping money at it. And personally, it's kind of like you're at the party after the party. It's like you kind of missed the train. It's already winding down. And so, like, what you're doing is interesting, like, because you're kind of trying to build something different from a different angle. I'm obviously an advocate for the independent pet trade, just because of my background and history, but I do see it as like something that would work well, especially through raw feeding stores where people are highly motivated about a dog's health. I mean, most people who walk into a raw pet food store, for me, that's a key part of your key target sort of people, because it's sort of like the opposite to grocery.
Yeah, they know about it and they're willing to spend on it, which is, two key areas, of course. But, it's that knowledge that they have of why these are better than your kibbles or whatever it may be, that you can't buy. That, is very hard to target. But when you can, that ultimately is when, those customers come on board, and that's when that subscription model helps. Yeah. Because it keeps them retained. The retention is high, and then hopefully you can over time build that advocacy.
Yeah. And just going back to the product, so I'm bouncing around a little bit, but like, is there a calorific content to it at all?
No, it's purely liquid. It's water-based, and no, there's no calorific count to it. Because
again, that's another issue with supplements, is that, like, especially with oils, that you can end up adding a lot of extra calories to a dog's dinner. So if you, let's say, feed 200 grams of something a day, you put 200 grams down, then you pump some oil on.
It's a lot of calories.
Yeah, it's more calories. Really, you should be, it should be more reducing the amount of food you give.
No, we're fortunate that there isn't any additional calories in it.
Yeah. No, it's it. That's what I mean. It's good, man. I'm interested to see how you get on. I think it's.
Yeah, look, we've worked with our German scientist partners extremely hard over the last 2 years. They've put in a huge amount of, they've invested a lot of time, they've invested a lot of resource, they've invested a lot of trust in us. And, it's now time to repay them. They put it in for the first 2 years developing genuinely this world-class product that, people haven't seen before. And now it's us trying to taking it to market, building a community and building that customer base that can go alongside it whilst building a brand around it. We want people to recognize the brand, and, when they see the brand, we want it to be trusting. We want it to be loyal, and people really understand the functionality and the health benefits of it. Yeah. For us, that is number one. Knowing the health benefits that we can give your dog and prioritizing your dog's health, for us really is the core of what we're doing. And that has been all the way through from production. And there were a few operational issues that we had to overcome. We haven't put acidifiers into it because it's a very neutral pH, which is the best for the dog's gut. We didn't want to make it, pH 3, pH 2, which would give an increased shelf life. So we had to work ways around that alongside our scientists and vets to maintain that pH, the neutral pH of pH 7, which is, as I said, best for the dog's guts, and work out how we can get a 12-month shelf life from that. And, that hopefully showcases that, we are not going to cut corners to just make our lives easy. We really are focusing on the health of the dog and providing what we think is the best healthy product on the market for them.
Yeah. So it's a 12-month shelf life, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say, how easy is it? Because obviously that when you're dealing with international markets, that obviously plays into it. Because if I'm sending a boatload of stuff to Australia, currently with the Suez Canal closed because of what's happening in Gaza and Israel, that can take 3 months. So
yeah, and we've heard, speaking to a lot of the kind of people, not necessarily in Australia, but they look for a 9-month minimum.
Yeah.
And, if it takes 3 months, we're fortunate that, it's a 12-month minimum shelf life.
Yeah.
Let's say. So the shelf life is longer. Again, we haven't been around to fully test it, but, the indication is that it's going to be in excess of 12 months.
Yeah, are you currently testing that at the moment then?
Yes.
Yeah, and like I say, the problem is to test something for 24 months, you've actually got to have it sitting on the shelf for 24 months.
Exactly. So that it's a chicken and egg, but we are constantly testing numerous tests a week to ensure we know not only the micro availability, but also the kind of shelf life and so on.
Because that also makes it a challenge as well, especially as a startup in terms of stock ordering, because obviously you'll have MOQs when you're ordering.
Yep.
And just going, well, let's do the MOQ. Now, to start with, things are going to be slow. So, it's always that thing is you want to order as little as possible, because what you don't want to do is get down to 6 months shelf life, because then it's sort of everyone's like...
Exactly. And also, add in the likelihood that there's probably going to be something wrong that happens in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
Of course there is. You don't want a huge bulk of stock that, an example could be there's spelling mistakes on the label or something like that. As simple as that. You don't want, 3-4 months worth of stock just sitting there with all that, so you've got, it's an interesting one. It's that balance between the MOQ, but also the ability to invest in the stock. And, trying to, you're right, do it on the conservative side, so you're playing that balance, is tricky. And that's what we found. And it comes back to the kind of cash flow in a startup. How much can you invest in stock to ultimately get a better price to be able to then push it out? Yeah. And I guess this is one of the games as the kind of founders of the companies that you've got to play, and it's...
I suppose on the other hand, though, because you are just starting with D2C and your initial plan wasn't to go, let's say, the wholesaler route, because then you've got 2 layers of margins that you've got to incorporate into that price model, you can probably afford to, not pay the best price initially.
On the D2C, we can. And, that was one of the main reasons for starting out, let's be as risk adverse as possible And, you know, being able to, if we had to pay 5% more to be able to get a lower MOQ, we're happy to pay that in the beginning to really solidify, prove that the concept works, prove that the stock's okay. You know, you could have a bad batch, for example. And if that's your first batch and it's 10 times what you should have ordered, you're then in trouble. So, you know, we've taken the steps that we've needed to ensure the first batches are relatively small. Yes, it's costing us a little bit more, but we'd rather that as a safety net to ensure, and also test and learn. You know, we tested all our processes now with a smaller batch, and then the whole reordering focus. You know, we've got our forecast for the next 12 months, and it's how do we align with those? And if we reorder in today, you know, when does the stock come in? It's simple kind of stock forecasting, but there's a lot of things that potentially could go wrong, especially around Christmas time. That never helps.
It's funny you said about spelling mistakes. I actually was in about a year ago. I was in a corporate store and there was a new brand of product, and like literally they had spelling mistakes on their products. That was
what when we were working with our kind of graphic designers, they said, please quadruple check this, because you won't believe the amount of people who have approved a design, printed 10,000 labels, say, or boxes, and oh, whoops, you've missed a letter or you've added an S.
I think it was like, instead of dog coats, it said dog costs or something. It was like, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, and it makes you just like, it's wince. It's fortunately, touch wood, it hasn't happened to us, but we've heard these, and this is where it comes back to, you know, having the investors / advisors, you know, having, when we're working with the kind of graphic designers, they've seen it all before. They've seen all the pitfalls you can go through. So they said, you know, let's send it to us. We'll triple check it. Bang, bang, bang. And also, you know, we read the graphic design, we read the text, we read the marketing every single day, every hour of every single day. Our brains are going to become numb to the tiniest of tweaks. And so sending it to someone with a fresh pair of eyes, these mistakes really do jump out.
And also, I mean, I do it. This particular thing is that I know what I mean.
Yeah.
But everyone else reads it and they're like, what the hell does that mean? Because it's kind of, in your head, it made sense what you wrote down. But
yeah, because, you know, it makes sense in your head because you know all the other aspects of it. But, you know, even just working with Archie, you know, there are times when he tells me something, I tell him something, he's like, or I'm like, what? It's almost like it's gibberish. Yeah. So it's actually a very good kind of thing for us to be able to explain it to each other. And if we can explain it to each other with them not knowing a single thing, we can then take it to our customers. But that's almost the first hurdle which we need to pass to ensure it's ready for market.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'd also, you know, we got in touch through Angela Baker, who's your PR person. And she's put you in a huge amount of magazines and that sort of stuff as well. And obviously, she well, I know we spoke before, like she mentioned it, but she's pretty relentless at getting things done as well. So having people like her around is invaluable.
Exactly. Having Angela, she's great. She's done a lot of work on the PR side for us, getting into a lot of the trade magazines, which is where I think a lot of the interest came from at Pat's. You know, having not really touched or spoken about retailers, wholesalers, and so on, turning up at Pat's, Archie and I thought to, you know, test the waters, see what that world looks like, to then be inundated with requests, wanting conversations, further conversations, and so on. Big hats off to her. She's done a great job, and, you know, everything she's done today has been with PAWD at the focus for us, which is invaluable. And, you know, again, you know, it's been great having her working for the same goal as us.
Because I think people forget how important sort of traditional media is, especially around trade publications. And that even when I was a kid working in a pet shop, you'd always get the PPM through, or like, you know, later the PBW. And just, you'd always look, because, you know, you've got downtime in the pet shop always. So actually, things like that, because it's so hard to actually target your message to the right people. Yeah. That actually, like, being able to get in front of the right people who have already got an audience which you're looking at is so important, because it's like that you could put an advert in the Guardian, but
Yes.
90% of the people who are going to see that advert are going to have absolutely zero interest in it.
Yeah, and that kind of comes back, I guess, to these communities. There are dog communities out there which are extremely loyal, extremely tight knit, and it's trying to put your messaging and your brand and your products into those communities where they fit best. And for example, for us, there are huge numbers of anxious dog communities, whether it be online, in the papers, in different social groups and so on. Being able to speak to those people all in one place is, hugely cost efficient for us, but also the uptake is much, much higher. And ultimately, that's when this advocacy comes from. If we can showcase the product working for one or two of these community members, then, ultimately it doesn't come from us. It comes from the members themselves talking to other members, which is, you'll know, is much more efficient from a marketing perspective than us putting an advert into it. So, that's everyone's goal. Of course it is. We want people, everyone wants customers referring them. That is, it's the easiest way of marketing, but it's also the most valuable.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. Cool. So are you on the hunt for retailers at the moment in terms of like Pat's, like where you're at Pat's, or are you still holding off on the?
We are in active conversations with people, but we are not actively looking and kind of engaging in it in the next Q1, Q2.
Yeah.
We want to cement all our processes for scale. As and when we can, then we can look to it for sure.
Yeah. No, awesome, dude. Cool. I have no idea how long we've been talking for.
Let's have a look. I think it's about an hour.
Is it?
I think so.
What time is it?
Oh, here it is. So it's been running for 1 hour and 6 minutes.
All right. Wicked.
There we go.
Yeah, good
Time
timing.
flies.
Good timing. Good timing. All right, dude. If people want to get hold of you, if they want to engage with you and the brand, what's the best way of getting hold of
you? Directly through our website or social media. Through Instagram, it's PAWD Drinks. And then my direct email is Rory, RORY, @pawddrinks.com.
So there's PAWD, just in case anyone slips an E in there. PAWD drinks.com. Nice.
Hopefully they can work it out from that.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that
we'll leave it in the caption.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'll say it 5 times, and then eventually that people might actually get it. So nice one, dude. Thanks a million.
No, thanks so much for having me. It's been great. I really appreciate it.
Nice.